So today we're here for an afternoon hike. It was very stormy this morning. We had a couple of thunderstorms, lots of rain. So I figured there was no need to get drenched. The sun is out now, but there's still quite a few big clouds up there. So we'll probably have some more rain later. One thing I noticed right away here at the beginning of the trail is that the dewberries no longer have flowers on them. Just a few flowers left on these. Most of these plants are now setting fruits. So they are done blooming. The blackberries are making fruits too, and they're almost ripe. And here we're seeing the rattlesnake plantains starting to make their flowers. So you see that characteristic foliage down there. We've seen this earlier in the year, but now they're actually sending up the flower stalks. On a close-up like this, you can really see why they call it the downy rattlesnake plantain. It's covered in tiny hairs. Now this is a really nice rhododendron specimen right along the trail here. I've been waiting for it to start blooming. It finally is in bloom. So this is Rose Bay rhododendron. It's blooming a little later than some of the other rhododendrons along the parkway. So here we have a newcomer in terms of blooms. Yellow flowers. Not fully sure yet what this is. Almost looks like maybe St. John's wort. Here we've got another plant with a tiny yellow flower. I'm pretty sure this one is acrimony. The black cohosh is still in bloom here. Those flowers have moved up on the inflorescence, so they're closer to the top now. The Joe Pye weed is starting to bloom here. Here's the wineberry. So this is now done blooming and making fruits. Now these fruits are edible and actually quite tasty. And we're finally seeing the Turk's cap lilies in bloom. There's another one right here. Now on this lily, I don't see the green star in the center of the flower that's typical for Turk's cap. It also only has one flower on this plant, so I think that actually might be the Carolina lily. On this one, you can actually see the green inside the petals there. So that is Turk's cap lily. Here we've got another one. We have fruits now developing on the hydrangeas. The last of the spiderbirds still hanging on here. Flower buds forming on these fall bloomers here. I want to say that is some kind of wood aster. Now we've got a nice view into the summer landscape here. And if we look closely on these slopes, There are the lilies in bloom. Here we've got more of that hedge nettle in bloom that we've seen before. The enchanter's nightshade that we found 2 weeks ago is making fruits already. This looks like some campion in bloom. The rain has knocked these flowers over and pushed them to the ground here. And the yellow jewelweed in bloom now here. Lots of black cohosh in bloom now. So yeah, this is lily time. We've got a good number of them here in bloom actually. And another nice example of the Turk's cap lily here. One still budding. Here we've got another plant in bloom that I saw last year and looked it up. I already forgot what it was. So I'll look it up again and tell you. So it's got these tiny flowers that are somewhat asymmetrical and have the red petals. I want to say something horse bomb maybe. We've got another newcomer here. That is tall bellflower. The flowers don't really look like bells, but it's in the campanula family. So yeah, the summer bloomers are now really starting their show. That looks to be the Indian plantain in bloom. So this has those big leaves we saw earlier in the year. And these yellow composites along the trail are in bloom now. So these look to have opposite leaves. One thing to look at with composites is the underside of the flower as well. So the shape and arrangement of the sterile bracts there, that is an important feature. Here we've got the buds, and there are some aphids on these plants. Here we've got something else starting to bloom that I don't recognize. It's got tiny little flowers. I'm not sure yet what this is. I'll have to look that up. The thimbleweed is done blooming and making its thimbles. Lots of these fall Solomon seal fruits now. Something's really loving the jewelweed in this area. Those leaves are all chewed up. And I think we may have found the culprit. So there are these tiny caterpillars on these plants, chewing up the leaves. These look a little odd for caterpillars. So I'm wondering if they might be something else. Maybe sawfly larvae. Those often look very similar to caterpillars. The nettles are starting to bloom, so those down there are the male flowers. And then the flower stalk developing above the leaves is the female flowers. Again, the male down there and the female on top. The purpose of the male flower, of course, is to make the pollen. And the female flowers have to catch the pollen. So they have these hairs where the pollen sticks to. Nettle flowers are not very showy because these plants are wind pollinated. So they do not have to attract pollinators. So here we've got a giant millipede crawling across the trail. Here we have a mystery plant, large leaves and buds. So we'll have to see what this turns out to be. Here's another one of these. First hickory nuts falling off the trees here. And here we've got another mystery plant. These are budding, not blooming yet. I have no idea what they are. A lot of the fruits on the sweet Sicily are now turning black in preparation for shedding their seeds. Now this plant also has this interesting little ball on there. It's tiny, and you see how it's hooked up to a strand of silk. That actually is a spider egg sac. And here we've got another one. They seem to like the sweet Sicily. So looking at ferns again along the trail here, this one has red stems. So I believe that is the southern lady fern. So let's turn this around and see if it's making sporangia. Oh yes. So you can see, again, these have a different shape from the other ferns we've looked at so far. Fall is coming. We're starting to see the first leaves on the ground here. So those yellow leaves are mostly tulip poplar. Tulip poplar has that habit of dropping its leaves early if it's dry. We've had some very dry weather lately. The Virginia jumpseed is now getting ready to bloom as well. Here we've got the first flower on it. We also have some more of the yellow jewelweed here. So here we are at the northern end of the trail again. And those cut leaf coneflowers we've been watching here have started blooming.